allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. Begin with the roll call.
Mac Rankin.
Here.
Eric Christensen.
Here.
Ben Metzger.
Here.
Bob Keller. Here. Sue Wilson.
Here.
You have Tim Mills.
Yes.
Tim Mills.
Here.
Thank you.
Here.
Thank you.
Ryan is absent this evening. Good news and board member reports.
The only good news, we have a new SBO, School Board Secretary. I'd like to welcome Chad this evening to Indianola Community Schools.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just sworn in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, sounds good.
Any board member reports? I did have the opportunity to visit the middle school for the Delph project presentations for a while. And one of the presentations that I watched, we're going to get to witness here in just a little bit. That was a really, really neat experience, and I'm really glad that those students are able to do that. So thank you very much for inviting the board to join on that.
Although I think they should go back to the poster boards, because I think every parent should struggle trying to put these kids the letters on right. Like I got in there and I was like, what? They're all on TVs? That's like an optimal time to have an argument with your student. Like, don't put that picture on like that. That looks terrible. Yes.
And I'm just going to give a shout out to Ray for a good job on making sure we had the technology. Maybe not.
No, I just think.
Now we're going to send all those back.
There was a few poster boards. We've got delegation, petitions, and communications up next. We'll invite anybody from the public that would like to speak. We do ask that you keep your comments to a minimum of 5 minutes or less, and make sure that you keep your comments respectful. There will be another opportunity later this evening during the public comment, or I'm sorry, the public hearing, if you've got things to speak about the public hearing topic as well. Chad, who do we have first on our list?
Kim Grissom. Did you want to talk?
Is
This-
the calendar the public hearing part?
Yes.
Correct. So
Okay,
you probably want
I
the
can
public
read.
hearing? Okay, very good. Kyle Burt.
Good evening. I'm Kyle Berg. I'm IEA President and High School Social Studies Manager. As of 7:30 a.m. this morning, the packet for tonight's school board meeting is available. I was made aware around 9 a.m. that it finally had been opened to the public and was able to take a look at it during the high school passing period. This gave me only 8 hours to view the information necessary to make intelligent public comments tonight. 7 of those 8 hours I was working. The question I have then, is this going to be the standard that we are going to see going forward? If that is the case, I have concerns. I would hope that this board and district would seek to be open and honest with the public. You have many important decisions tonight that will affect your teachers' lives, such as the calendar and their staff handbooks that have been changed, that ultimately spell out, along with the master contract, the conditions of their employment. These are things that are not taken lightly by your staff or the public that you serve. These also need to have the opportunity for well-informed public discussion, something that unfortunately was lost by the delayed information from today's packet. What is concerning is the lack of transparency coming from the district office in regard to packets and information being made available to the public. The decision to limit live streaming is still on the table, and the lateness of the packets or agenda-only information also limits the community can see and discuss with you. That the people to the people that you have entrusted you to power. Thank you.
Kyle?
Rita Southall.
Hello, I'm Greta Southall. I'm high school English teacher, chief negotiator, and my school address is 328 Abbey Road. I echo Kyle's thoughts regarding transparency. Your obligation to your constituents and one of your professed goals as a body of elected officials is transparency. Yet this body has recently taken several actions that run counter to that professed goal. One, as Kyle mentioned, that debate/discussion about limiting live streaming and or video archiving is still looking into. There should be no question about whether you make your actions visible. Two, the recent public hearing for the tax levy was held at a time engineered to make participation from the public very difficult. And that is is the sole purpose of a public hearing. And a third, as Kyle mentioned, recent example of obscurity as opposed to transparency was the unavailability of tonight's packet, even though the agenda contains another public hearing. How are members of the public supposed to participate in an informed manner if access to the items being discussed is limited? And on that note, the agenda contains 2 items of great import to educators whose contracts must be signed soon. 1, the calendar, which I'll speak to here in a moment during the public hearing, and 2, the certified staff and associate handbook. I did a quick side-by-side comparison after school to ascertain what changes had been made, and I appreciate very much the attempt to streamline this document. I know what a mess it was. I also know that the board is not going to respond to my questions in public comment, but I'd like to point out a couple of items that stood out to me that might need further clarification in the certified staff and associate handbook. 1 stems from the inclusion of board policy 4092 regarding social media and texting. It's unclear if the guidelines are intended for social media in an official or work capacity, as some of the wording kind of suggests, or if the guidelines are intended for employees using social media in any capacity, including in their private lives. And the second item that I thought might need some clarification in the handbook is regarding meetings outside of the school day. And this is in a new or updated work day section. It lists both staff meetings and professional meetings, each with a cap of 3 per month. My question is a staff meeting and a professional meeting, is there a difference between the two? And if so, is the cap 3 total meetings per month, or is it 6 meetings per month? So those are 2 items that stood out to me that might need some clarification in that handbook.
Thank you, Greta. Anyone else?
No one else.
Okay. The consent agenda is the next item on the list. Any questions or anything that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? If there's no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Make motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made by Ben, seconded by Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Presentations. Maddie Jewett.
Maddie Jewett. I'm an 8th grade student at IMS. My Delph project was Show Teachers Going. This is what it looks like in the US today. This is how many teachers take off and how much they get paid. You can see a lot of percentages, a lot of the pie chart is that teachers take no time off, and then there's some that take 6 to 12 weeks off, but there's just a little that take 12 plus weeks off.
Can you show the video?
By Republican Senator Adam Pugh would require school districts to provide 12 weeks of paid maternity leave for teachers. You probably thought they already had it. The House has already passed an education plan that does not include paid leave. The national law mandates 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Right now, only 13 states and the District of Columbia have paid parental leave laws. Oklahoma's not one of them. The bill does have bipartisan support, though, but there are concerns about the cost. Senator Pugh estimates that it will cost Oklahoma about $25 million to mandate paid leave for teachers. The measure will need to be heard on the Senate floor by March 23rd. That's the deadline to advance.
One of my supporting questions is should teachers get teachers qualify for 12 weeks unpaid, but most teachers do only get 6 weeks paid. depends on the school district, but in Indianola, you can qualify for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it just depends on how you have it. Should the maternity leave paid? When a new mother has the ability to have their maternity leave paid, studies show that overall health outcome is remarkably better. Paid leave has proven health benefits such as lower blood sugar and not as much pain. This is contributed to not worrying about what is happening with the finances and when they are not. So the husbands get days off too. The U.S. is the only country among its wealthy peers to fail to guarantee universal paid family leave. If fathers had to leave, it would help build a bond with their individuals. A recent study found that fathers taking a paid leave was associated with better long-term relationships with their parents. If teachers have sick days, could they use them to get more time paid off? Curly Myers says that she gets 10 sick days a year. So for 7 years of teaching, she tried to not take any sick days to be able to get the time off. And that some school districts, other teachers that have sick days can donate some other days to the teacher in need. Some school districts, like one in California, has a law that the other teacher has to use 100 days off, up to 100 days off, and then they can give their sick days to other teachers. This is an interview that I did with Amber Strable. She's an IMS teacher. She teaches 8th grade science. Miss Strable got 8 weeks off when she had a baby while working at IMS. She could have taken 12 weeks, but it was unpaid, so she just took the 8 weeks. Her husband got 10 days off, but it was not paternity leave paid. It was just his sick days. Amber Strable believes that she and her husband should get 16 weeks paid. She also believes that teachers come back way before they're ready. My claim is yes, they should have a long maternity leave. I think that they should have 12 weeks paid, but if they have any sick days left over, they can use them. I also think that the husband should get 8 weeks paid, but that should be from their employer. My counterclaim is one of the main arguments against this implementing paid parent leave for teachers is the cost. California's Governor Gavin Newsom vetoed such legislations in 2019 aimed concerns that if it could cost between $43 million and $163 million annually. My reasoning to this is a lot is happening to new mothers when they have their baby. Postpartum is very hard on new mothers. A lot is happening physically, but a lot is also happening mentally. We need to recognize the effects it has on new mothers. So in science, we worked on this thing where I asked a bunch of teachers and students at IMS if teachers should get a long maternity leave. First, I asked them if they've ever taken maternity leave. You can see that 100% of teachers that said they have taken maternity leave also said that teachers should get a long maternity leave. Even though that the other question, or the other people that said no, they've never taken maternity leave, 54% of them think that teachers should get a long maternity leave. Even though it's not as much as my first question, it still supports my claim. But to improve my survey, I would probably ask more teachers or people that I knew that have taken a maternity leave. Is teachers the only one not getting this right? Even though I've only covered teachers, there are still many professions that do not have this right. Paid parental leave for state employees is another example. Another example is state employees who give birth would have received up to 4 weeks of paid leave under a bill proposed by Reynolds. A state employee who did not give birth would have gotten 1 week off paid leave. State employees who adopt would have gotten 4 weeks of paid leave. You can see in the picture that the red states are that leave available, but it's unpaid. The orange states are up to 8 weeks paid leave, but the ones in green are 12 weeks paid. My action plan. I think that the reason that teachers are not getting a long maternity leave is because not enough people know about this issue. So I let more people know. So to let more people know, I sent a letter to the Indianola School Board to see what they can do. This is the letter I wrote. I'll read it to you guys. Deal School Board. My DEL project is about teachers and their maternity. With all the research I have found, it is not fair how long teachers have maternity leave. I see that teachers only get 6 to 8 weeks paid maternity leave. I feel like that's crazy and very unfair. It takes many months for moms to feel connected to their baby. So I thought I would write you this letter so you could take this into consideration. My claim is that teachers should get a longer paid maternity leave. I feel like 12 weeks paid is fair for them. I think that if they have more left sick days, they can use them also. I also think that other teachers should be able to lend the mom some sick days if they feel like the mom is going to need some more time off. My reasoning for this is that a lot is happening to new mothers when they have their baby. Postpartum is very hard in new mothers. A lot is happening physically, but a lot is also happening mentally. We need to recognize the effects it has on mothers. I also know that it would take a lot of money to do this. Thank you for reading this, and I hope you take this into consideration and think about what we can do to help teachers get the time they deserve. Thanks for your time, Maddie Jewett, 8th grade. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for coming with that, Maddie. We really appreciate it, and I appreciate you writing the letter to us beforehand and inviting us to come and see your presentation.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Softball. Standards-based reporting is next on the list.
So I'll start off on the first few slides here about the direction of this and how it relates to the district's vision and the strategic direction that was picked by the board. This has been in development for several years, and the board curriculum committee had an introduction to this, and we said that we would bring it to the board because it's kind of a large project and initiative there. One of the pieces about standards-based reporting, Ray, if you could go to the next slide, is that if we really want to address this vision of having global success for our students and to make sure that we're having rigorous and collaborative learning, those points that are up there we have to have in place. We really have to make sure we know what it is we need to teach, match it with effective instruction, provide that quality curriculum, making sure we're assessing what we're teaching, build that culture that we want to continually improve. But this other key piece here is on the clarity of communication. From the teachers, the students, the parents, are we all clear on those pieces? What are we learning and how is the student progressing in that learning? And through that, there has to be a satisfactory amount of information. And so when we take a look at the desired daily experiences, the next slide, Ray, that had come out from that information, even there, the families reiterated they want a clear understanding of what's expected of their students. Students want to have ownership in their learning and what's expected of them. And from the staff, even though this answer was in the category of that we prioritize the physical, social, and emotional safety, it was also talking about making sure we have consistent communication. And I feel like that really does relate back to this because, and I'll talk even at SIAC, we had a student that said, if I know how I'm learning, I don't let a D or a low grade bottom them out. They have more hope if they know that something was a struggle, they could progress through that if they knew where they were at on this learning continuum. And so, and staff want to be able to meet the needs of the students. So we have Christy Ellis, the middle school principal, here tonight with Jamie Daniel, our instructional coach, who have both helped lead tremendously all of the work taking place to have this ready for to roll out at the next school year for the middle school. And they'll also touch upon how does this relate to the elementary, who has standards-based reporting and has had it for many years. We've also heard from SIAC that they want additional information for elementary students, not just at conference time. And so this can lead into the next steps of circling back to the elementaries and starting in with some reporting out for student or for parents through Schoology, so they're even more informed with information. So.
Like Annette said, my name is Jamie Daniel. I'm one of the instructional coaches at the middle school. I've been in this role, this is my 5th year now. And over the course of this time, we've been learning a lot about effective instruction. We've been hearing for years from our counterparts over at the high school that our grades are inflated. We want to be able to give clear communication to the high school teachers. We want to give clear communication to students about what they're learning, where they're at in that learning process. And we want to give clear communication to parents about what their grades actually mean. So if you look at your students' grades right now, if you have a middle schooler looking at that A, what does it actually mean? So we wanted to kind of look at, how can we address this? How can we be more clear with our communication to parents? How can we clearly identify, this is what we're learning. We're not chasing after points. We're focused on learning skills that are essential, not just to get our kids to the high school, but to help them be successful at the high school. So this was one of our big shifts, was looking at how can our grades be accurate, truly reflect what learning our students have them be fair. We're not inflating our grades, we're giving students multiple opportunities to learn, multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning over a period of time. Not punishing students for taking longer to get to that learning point, but really trying to be very clear and explicit with that. Providing a lot of feedback, going through that coaching process, that learning isn't one and done, it's continual, and building confident learners like Annette was talking about. This is where you're at right now, this is where you need to go on. So those were kind of some of our initial motivations as we were moving forward. And we've been working kind of on some of these processes over the last several years. We started with a book called Teacher Clarity to make sure that our teachers really were focused on what are our essential standards. Where are we going? What do we expect of our students? And how are we going to get there? We've been doing whole group professional development during our professional development days. And we've been doing small group professional development so we can do targeted PD. So we can sit down and say, how does this really pertain to 8th grade language arts compared to 6th grade math? Because those are two very different classrooms. The instruction looks different, the reporting looks different, the standards are different, the terminology is different. So we're trying to be very explicit using the same process, but targeting and having those conversations so that our teachers are really competent in what they're doing and helping their students understand where they're going in this process.
All right, along with that, we are also looking at Schoology. That'll be probably one of the biggest differences from the elementary is we will use Schoology to show the progress. So all parents will have access to Schoology and we'll be able to, it won't be like the elementary where you see one grade. You'll be able to see every single piece of evidence that the student has done. Along with that, we have a parent focus group that has looked at it. We met about 4 or 5 times, or maybe 3 or 4 times. We looked at the whys, the what, and how, and what is it that the parents want to know. We got their parents' view on things. We talked about what is the best way to communicate this to parents and what kind of process. And then we also looked at PowerSchool and the Schoology navigation piece and showed them what it will look like for parents and the students, and as well as teachers, on Schoology. We will be having some parent information sessions later on for learning as well as learning for teachers and things like that, so that everybody has a clear idea of what is going to be taking place with the reporting piece. In elementary, we kind of talked about this already. They have proficiency scales and data points, but their current system doesn't allow them to see the ongoing learning. Schoology is going to allow the ongoing learning to take place, so parents will know exactly what the pieces of evidence and how their student has scored immediately. It will look like, for Schoology, for each standard that the teachers have chosen, there will be 3 to 5 bodies of evidence and artifacts, and this will take place throughout the year. There'll be visible progression of student learning, so parents will be able to see how their students are learning. So they might be not secure here, but we're going to see that learning progression as it goes to hopefully getting up to secure, and we're enriched in learning with that too. We will still allow redos and retakes, but it's focused on learning. And this is where that one student at SIDE really said, you know, when you do points, it's like, all we're trying to do is get more points, more points, more points. But he said this kind of takes that stress out of the point system. Because if you're secure, you're secure. And if you want to learn more, there's going to be another layer called enriched understanding that you can reach to, but you're not worried, we're not chasing points anymore. So it's going to be focused on skills and learning.
So this is the proficiency scale that we've developed, that we're anticipating using. We wanted to keep the language very similar to what the elementary uses. The elementary uses beginning, developing, nearly secure, secure. We decided we wanted to go developing, nearly secure, secure, and then we wanted to add that layer of enriched understanding so we can say, are we pushing our students? Our goal is to get all of our students to that secure point by the end of the grading period. Some of our courses are a quarter long, some are a semester, some are a year long. Our goal is to get all of our students secure. But we know that we have some students that are going to come in and they're going to be nearly secure right off the bat, or some of them might even be secure right off the bat. As professionals, it's our job to continue to push them and challenge them to try to grow more. So we have that enriched understanding, so we're not just settling for, okay, that's good enough. The one piece that we do have down at the bottom, and it's purposely designed so it doesn't look like there's 5 circles, so it doesn't equate to an A, B, C, D, F. Insufficient evidence. This is, I have not provided evidence of my learning. So this would be used very rarely. This is if a student just does not demonstrate their learning. They're not turning in their work. They're refusing to come to class. Things like that. So that is what that insufficient evidence is at the bottom there, and that's where we would be looking at for academic eligibility for activities and athletics. But otherwise, that proficiency scale is really, where are you at right now? If you're at that developing stage, it's okay. We're trying to get you to your next step. These are the things that you have to do. Okay, now we're at nearly secure. What do we have to do to get you to the next step? So the focus is really not on points. It's not punitive. It's just where are you at right now?
And I kind of want to mention something what she said earlier. This is not A, B, C, D. That's probably going to be one of the biggest struggles that we'll have is they're going to look at that. Enriched understanding might be A. There might not be an enriched understanding for every single standard, so it's not necessarily an A. So secure is not an A or a B. There's no way that transfer that grade because that's not what we're about. We're not about points. We're about learning.
And we have had the question about algebra and geometry for our GT students, and we have a plan in place, and we're working with the teachers that teach those classes for how they will transfer that to a letter grade for the high school transcripts. These are some images that we had Allie, one of our tech integrationists, come up with for Schoology. So right now, as parents, you go to PowerSchool to see your students' grades. At the middle school, you will go to Schoology. Right now, the Schoology mobile app is not super friendly. These are some of the images that Allie was able to pull from for us. But Ray, if you go to the next slide, if you go to the web-based version, as a parent, you would, instead of going to grades, you would click on this button that says Mastery down below. Next slide, Ray. And you would see something like this. So Allie has me set up as a student in one of her classes, and we just have a sandbox that we're playing in. And so she can go in and she can set, where are you looking at assignments that I turn in, take assignments that I turn in, and she can just give me a proficiency scale. Where am I at? Am I nearly there? Am I there? So this is what parents and students would see on each of their assignments. So they can correlate that to the proficiency skills. The teacher view would look more like this. And this kind of toggles back and forth. I know this one has some numbers on there. Ours will not have numbers. This is just something Allie pulled, but it will be color coded so each teacher can go through and look at their classes and very easily see, hey, these are my students that are not secure yet in this standard. These are where my students are struggling. This color code is super nice. I can see where each of my students are.
at all times. And you can clearly see that progression of learning over time. So that's what the teachers will see as like a whole class view.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So regarding, I really like the concept and how it gets the kids moving along, and I guess informs the teacher where the kids are struggling still so that they can keep working with them, I'm assuming, throughout the semester. And I think what Annette said would be important for the parents to know along the way, so that way they can maybe help along the way if needed. One question I did have was, like, have you guys reached out to anyone at the high school to see any hangups that would happen between 8th grade and 9th grade upon getting there? Like, because I'm assuming without a lot of deadlines, does that create a lot of extra work for a teacher then to have to go back and regrade, and lingering assignments always out here for a student? And oh, there are still deadlines. Okay.
So it'll be the same as now.
Were you saying about deadlines then earlier?
Now you have the opportunity to go back and retake. You're gonna see this progression over time.
Okay.
Right? So I was a former science teacher. So one of their skills is analyzing data. So that's gonna be something that they work on. It's actually one of their science and engineering practices. It goes K-12. But at the middle school, they're gonna work on that all year long. So if I'm looking at 7th grade, this is where I want them at the beginning of the year. That's gonna come up again. Where
So
are
they
they
can-
at? Where are they at?
They can
And
do the
can
retakes and-
They can do reassessments over that content, because the content might change. The skills are still gonna be the same within science. They're always gonna be analyzing that data, asking those questions. But the content within those are going to change throughout the year, because that's just how the science is set up. So they'll have opportunities that they can continue to learn the content and reassess within those skills. But as parents, you should be able to see that progression over time of how they're developing within their ability to make an argument, or within their ability to make or to analyze data. And as we've talked to some of the math teachers, kind of looking at this algebra geometry, one of our hopes is that we're giving the high school more data to say, this is where your students are actually at. So yeah, they're coming over with an A in algebra. Okay, well, what can they actually do? They can actually solve these multi-step equations. They can actually graph. They can do this. Or with English, they can actually write an argument based off of the informational text, but they struggle more with the narrative writing. So it should be able to help more with better placement as far as course selection, and be able to give a better picture of who the student is in general.
And it might not be a read test immediately. I used to teach chemistry, and eventually I'd say, hey, let's go on, we're gonna have to move on. It'll come to you. And sure enough, when we move to the next topic, they're like, a light bulb comes on. So all of a sudden, they're able to perform that skill, and we're able to measure that skill right there, instead of retake. A lot of times we'll just say, especially because they will have 3 to 5 bodies of evidence. And so if this one is nearly secure, we might say, hey, listen, we're gonna be redoing this again a little bit later. And you have that opportunity to get it secure. Because our goal is by the end of 3 to 5 pieces of evidence for them to be secure and to show progress.
So what if we have a kid that is showing progress, but not the progress that the other kids are showing? You know what I'm saying? So, right, so the class is moving along and the class is here, and this kid's improving, but is only here and not there. So will they continue to kind of work at their pace through this, or be kind of lost in the swim, or how does that?
That's where we have those in-class interventions
Okay.
within like small group instruction. Or, you know, if I see that I've got a couple of students across my classes, you know, they're really struggling, I might pull a small group, study group. We're gonna do some reteaching. I teach 4 different classes and they're all in different periods. So during a guided study, we're gonna pull them together and we're gonna do a small group lesson together, or we're gonna do something different to try to get them to grasp the skill in a different way. We want all of our students to continue to learn progress, but we want to continue pushing them as well. We do want to get all of our students to secure it's not enough to say, hey, you made a little bit of progress, that's good enough. We do want to keep pushing them to get there.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Good presentation.
All right, discussion and action items. Under the District 1A, we just swear in a new board secretary.
Probably want to go ahead and put a vote for appointing me first.
We might want to do that. Is there a motion to appoint?
I'll make a motion to appoint Chad Vink as our new secretary.
Second. Motion made by Ben, seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
All right, Chad. Do you solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and will you faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of Board Secretary and Treasurer in the Indianola Community School District now or the hereafter required by law?
I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Chad.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Appreciate the quick vote too at Oskaloosa. The person giving the second would always have a nice pause in there first. Make us sweat it out a little bit.
A little bit of pressure. Next item is handbooks, the elementary student handbooks
Let's
specifically.
do a real quick recap on that. That was pulled off the agenda from last time. I did reach out to the elementary principals in regards to the dress code and things like that, and they felt the way it was presented or the way it was informed in the handbook. This time they felt they'd like to leave it because there are some students that, for whatever reason, maybe they're in the office and they put their hoodie up, or it's some of those pieces that they would rather not have a blanket statement but work with them individually with their students, and they felt it wasn't a big issue if they had examples in there or not.
In each elementary building, can they choose their own policies within their own buildings?
Their own policies.
Like if one building decides that they don't want hoodies?
I think they work individually on that. I don't think it's so set in stone that everybody
Yeah,
has
that's
to
what
say
I'm
that.
asking. They can just kind of,
Because I know that there's some kids that, you know, and one of the building principals said, you know, sometimes if a kid's having a difficult day, they might put their hoodie up for a little bit, and you know, it helps them calm or escape what they need to, and then they pull it back down, and they're fine with that.
That'd be noted on their IEP.
I don't think it is. I don't think it's put on, I don't know, but I don't think it would be.
I think it could be a student without an IEP,
Yeah.
I think is where, I think there's some students that have coping mechanisms that is on their IEP, but it also could be for kids that don't have IEPs.
Yep.
so is there any concerns of kids with, I don't know, what are they called? AirPods, earpods, right? What are they called? AirPods? I don't know.
I've never seen one at elementary school.
At elementary, okay.
At least they've never mentioned that to me, so.
Questions or comments?
And just nothing changed on the certified staff one. It was just pulled because the other was pulled. Was that, if I remember right, correct?
Certified staff and associate was not presented last month. It's new this month.
You're just doing the elementary handbook at this point.
Gotcha. I'll make a motion to approve the elementary student handbook as is.
Motion made by Ben,
Second.
seconded by Eric with a noted pause. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Rob was a nay. Motion carries 5-1. Certified staff and associate handbook.
Was there anything on this handbook that showed changes from last year? Because I know like the high school handbooks will be highlighted or anything.
We talked about that at length. We had a team of teachers and associates, or one associate wanted to be on the committee. Was an overwhelming number of changes, but mostly consolidating from one to another.
Okay.
Greta ask a question about we didn't change any of that language. It was just moving something from one section to another, so I don't disagree that probably needs clarified. We had a little delay in January from one of the meetings for snow days, and we took this right to the wire, so noted going forward, we'll be doing this a lot earlier. But mostly it was just kind of moving things, consolidating, a lot of references to the actual board policy, because when board policy changes, the handbook wasn't being updated, and it was the one that we had was 2 years old. It was last done in 22-23, so we've been operating with that one. It's a work in progress, obviously, and throughout the year, we're happy to listen to any changes that people want to make for the following year. I think Kim was on the committee too and helped with it, so always good to get a good language teacher on board too. So, but yeah, really mostly board policies were referenced throughout this.
So can we clarify then the 409.2, should we just do that before? And the other one that Greta had brought up, the meetings outside the school day? Like, can we change those so it's more specific then, so they know whether it's personal social media versus?
The handbook is your board policy. Right, it's a board policy, so I reference that in the handbook. That would be changing board policy if we do it. And we did write at the top of the handbook, if any board policies change throughout the year, it would automatically, it would supersede what is in the handbook if a board policy would change. So we tried to reference it multiple times throughout it.
Okay. And then what about the second one that she had mentioned? Is that?
And that wasn't a change from before, but I can understand that would be, unclear.
Or can we clarify before we vote on it then? Yeah, that section, or?
Let's see.
It's needed, or?
Yes, it's now all in, we took two pieces and we.
I know.
Which then creates a different effect. I think it's page 26 is the numbered page of the draft handbook, so I don't know it'll be earlier in this. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Which paragraph?
At the bottom.
It's like the top of the next page.
There you
Yep.
go.
Staff
It's
meetings.
two
So yeah, so I think we combined two sections.
We did,
And then the effect is a little different. I think it seems like it's 6, not 3 or whatever, so.
And I guess I wouldn't know how, is it often where they're asking for 3 professional development days and 3 staff meetings? Like, do we ever have 6 per month?
I really hope not.
I
I didn't understand what the difference between a professional meeting, wouldn't staff meeting fall under that, I guess?
I would say in the past that the three meetings were staff meetings and/or professional meetings combined if it was something within the building. But if somebody's invited to come to a meeting like at central office and they're a part of a special group or focus group, that isn't a part of the 3 per month that building principals are hosting. Kim's nodding that seems like that's what that was. Christy, you've been operating under the 3 per month.
Start having 6 a month, I can tell.
But now that we know.
6.
So, change that verbiage to match.
Yeah,
That said we can do
if you guys feel like it's.
I don't think
appropriate,
anybody's
you wanna
taking
ask the
advantage of
question.
that. We're trying to schedule 6.
It's 10 cents if it was an and/or.
Yeah. Whatever you guys think.
Just want to change it to the and/or and call it good.
Any other questions?
And/or.
A staff meeting and/or professional meeting?
Board policy then to make sure it is what we want. So that's, especially in the day and age we live in. I don't want people to feel like they're handcuffed, but I do want people to be professional as well, because you do represent your employer wherever you are nowadays, so I'm not sure. Maybe we can revisit that, figure out if we have to look at it again or something.
We can talk about that in the next policy committee meeting.
We'll put it on that agenda. Policy. Matt, you'll put that on the policy meeting agenda, policy committee?
Yes.
Someone
Talk to Ted.
I'll make a motion to approve the certified staff and associate handbook with the amended and/or added to the workday meeting language.
Staff professional.
Staff and professional development. Does that make sense?
Motion made by Ben, seconded by Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right, letter C, district calendar. We will open the public hearing.
Kim Grissom, you are invited to speak.
Hello, my name is Kim Grissom. I was just informed by Steph Montgomery today that I've been here for 20 years now, so that's been crazy. I currently teach high school English at the high school, and I just wanted to talk. I don't know that this is necessarily about this year's calendar as much as it is about those guidelines that are on that agenda item and what the board's sort of will is. And so I'd like to just speak a little to the extra instructional time that is currently in this year's calendar and is proposed for next year's calendar. Next year we have 69 instructional hours over the 1080 that we're required to have. And while I do definitely want snow time built in, for sure, because people like to plan their lives and it's nicer if we know when school will get out or when breaks will be. And I do appreciate that the board really wants to maximize instructional time. I have concerns about sort of the historical way that we've gotten here, okay? We have always had a certain number of hours or days that we have to teach. And we have always, as long as I've been here for 20 years, we've had 190 contract days. But what has changed is our breaks have gotten shorter and our work days have gone away. We used to have teacher work days. We used to have one, at least one, that was a designated work day at the beginning of the school year. We used to have one in between our two major semesters. And we used to have one at the end of the school year. And those days were crucial for teachers to prepare, get our classrooms ready, transition from one semester to the next, get our grades done, and also get our materials ready for the next group of students that's just walking into our room on Monday morning. And then at the end of the year to sort of finalize those grades. And I do understand that technology has made some things about teaching easier. Some things do go faster, but the planning still has to happen. All that stuff has to be built on technology. And in addition, like, all of us are teaching the Iowa Core, and there isn't a single subject area in the Iowa Core, there's not a single grade level in the Iowa Core that can all be assessed by a multiple choice, self-graded computer assessment. It just doesn't happen. We're teaching kids how to think. We're teaching kids there are multiple ways to solve problems. We're teaching kids how to write. We're teaching kids how to organize data or analyze data or do things that require us as teachers to actually read what they put together and then assess its quality. And so as an English teacher, I have a particular long amount of reading to do, but even an elementary teacher has things that it takes time to go through. It takes time to assess. And so my biggest concern about those extra instructional hours is that, yes, we want our kids to continue to learn, but there's no, like, if you ask any teacher anywhere, but especially in Indianola, would you be a better teacher? Could your students improve their learning if you had a little more time to plan, if you had a little more time to give quality feedback, if you had a little more time to offer timely grading with also opportunities for timely redo and retake? They would all say yes, because there's never enough hours in our day. And so My proposal or my hope for you is that if we have extra time in our schedule, because of our 1080 hours and our 190 contract days, could we use at least some of that time, not for extra instruction, for extra days with kids, but also to have some time for teachers to have those work days reinstated, so that we can have more time to really make that learning happen, and also deal with all of the things that kids give us to show their learning. I didn't look at my notes at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Burke, you're welcome to come speak.
And with the addition of the standards reference grading at the middle school and feedback being that important issue, I just wanted to get back to what the kid was saying, especially with that building as well, across the district. One of the things that has worked well for former administrations in the past, and I believe would alleviate a lot of headaches, was the formation of a calendar committee with teacher representatives from each level. This allowed for a variety of viewpoints that built some years into a 180-day calendar, and some it was not in the best interest to do that. Which brings me to my next point. Our own guidelines stipulate that we have 180 days or 1080 hours. This measure was brought by the Department of Education over a decade ago to give districts wiggle room with the calendar. The calendar that you proposed is 69 hours over the state minimum, which turns into 2 weeks and 5 hours. In one of our last negotiation meetings, the leadership on both sides discussed the lack of people coming into the field of education. This calendar seeks to squeeze as much blood from the stone as it possibly can to get as high of an academic yield as possible. In this packet, I noticed that he had over 20 people apply for the elementary principal jobs. That seems like a very low number. When I was fighting for a job here, it seemed like I was going up against hundreds. And that was only about a decade ago. Your teachers are burnt out. April and May last lifetimes as behaviors shoot through the roof and education suffers. You have the opportunity to actually do something to improve your teachers' mental health and attract high-quality teachers to our district. I implore you to rethink this calendar, give us some time with our families, and not make us choose between one of the different options that were presented to us. Thank you.
Brenda Southall, you are welcome to come speak.
Again, still Greta Southall, still 328 Abbey Road, and I am Kim's classmate. This is my 20th year here as well. Oh, next year, my teaching career at Indianola will be old enough to go to the casino. I will say what I've said in various circumstances regarding calendars to a number of different people. For reasons unexplained, we continue to cling to this apparently magical number of 180. There is no legitimate reason to do so because, as mentioned, the law is 180 hours or 1080 hours, not both. And because we have lengthened our instructional day and kept the 180 student days, we continue to build more than 2 full weeks of instructional time into each calendar. Last year was 68 hours, and even before that it was 60 odd. But we're still stacking this up here. And as we ask more of our educators, we continue to pare back their time to recharge, to spend with their families, and to work. The holiday breaks get shorter, flex time becomes with an assignment and does not get credit for work already being done. Outside of the school day, school year affords few opportunities for long weekends, unless, of course, you are an employee. We have several examples of district calendars, I think of the 2017-18 that I thought I printed, but didn't. The 21-22, the 2019, and I know it wound up being COVID, the 2019-2020 calendar all had fewer than 180 school days for students. However, we had at least 40 additional hours of instructional time in those years. So it is possible to have a calendar that includes a ton of additional instructional time, but does not include 180 student days, thereby allowing us adequate work days and breaks for educators. When you are considering calendar creation and calendar adoption, please consider the health and mental well-being of not just your students, but also your staff. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Any discussion from the board?
I guess hearing some of the feedback, it seems like it might make sense to go back to the drawing board a little bit, maybe have some staff involvement to try to address some of those concerns with the, the work days or the reducing the number of hours in there to at least move partway toward addressing some of those concerns.
And we've had some preliminary conversations in HR, so I think it's worth continuing to have conversations and see where things go. I just have one question on the year-round. Obviously, we're unique. Irving, we have RAGBRAI coming through in the middle of the day, July 24th, and Irving's going to be in session. Just wondering if there's any concerns there.
We did talk about that last week a bit.
It just kind of came up, so.
Yeah.
Same thing a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They started in Winterset that day and they end in Knoxville, so we thought that by 8 o'clock, I don't know how many people will be in Indianola by then, affecting the Irving traffic. Talked to the transportation director, he said that they could get all the students to class safely.
Yeah.
He wasn't concerned about that, so we talked about different options there, but.
Sounds good. I just want to make sure you
Thank you.
was on the radar, so.
Shelley, when your crew proposed this calendar, was it brought up to like admin?
Yes.
Yeah, so our administrative team, so the principals and the whole cabinet?
They made several suggestions of changes. One of the big things was we moved parent-teacher conferences in October, a couple weeks later. Wanted to have a down week for activities. I think this year, there were several things that conflicted with parent-teacher conferences in the fall. Football, volleyball, swimming. I can't even remember all the conflicts that we had going, but I checked with activities office, middle school and high school, and there's only 2 things that would conflict. One is a concert on Tuesday night, but nothing on Thursday. So, and we did get a lot of feedback, and then coming to the end, I sent out a survey to the staff asking within these parameters, which day would they rather, I didn't list all the possible options of calendars, but which would you rather give up, the day before Thanksgiving, the day after conferences, or add a day to the end of the year? And the majority chose they'd rather work on the day before Thanksgiving. So I went with that,
So we did have some feedback with it. So is the the principals, they like this calendar? Like, did they have any big feedback on this at all?
I think there was, we were negative other than a few changes that they offered. So, I don't know why my neck is.
I think that, go ahead, Ben, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate your work on this. I think it's hard enough trying to figure out where to go to lunch with 4 people, let alone make a calendar for 3,500. So appreciate your work on it. It's never gonna be perfect, and I think we can always toss around ideas to make the process better, but I appreciate what you've done on this.
I would agree with that. And I think it's important to look back at why this board and why previous boards have wanted to maintain the 180 days. I think there is some validity behind it, wanting students to be in a safe place, wanting them to be in a safe place where they have access to breakfast and lunch. I think there is some reasoning behind where that 180 days came from, in addition to providing the hourly requirement. Not opposed to having additional conversations, but I think at this point it probably is important for us to approve the calendar for the 2024-2025 year, unless other board members feel differently. That's kind of where I sit with it right now.
Hey, Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have one question, or a statement, I guess, is I think it'd be good if we captured some of the feedback that we do gather and garner in the boardroom. And so, typically we call those things like AARs or, after action reports or whatever, and then just kind of take that feedback and keep it for next year when we go through this process again. I'm on board with everything you just said. I just think that would be a good technique to capture some of the feedback from tonight.
I appreciate that, Tim. I think that's great advice. Close the public hearing unless there's anything else. Okay. The next item would be the approval of traditional and year-round education calendars.
Make a motion to approve are they separate
You can do them together.
motions? The traditional and year-round 2024-25 school calendars.
Motion made by Sue,
Second.
seconded by Tim. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Eric was a nay, so 5-0, or 5-1, I'm sorry. The next item is the Teaching and Learning School Improvement Advisory Committee report.
So the SIAC committee met on March 26th, and there were 3 different components to that meeting. The first part being the presentation that you heard this evening about the standards-based reporting for the middle school. There was a parent present from that focus group, or that guiding group that's been working on that. And just again, to reiterate how we're trying to engage students in their learning, make them a part of that process, and make it more meaningful, and having satisfactory information available for both parents and the students. The second presentation was about the district wellness plan that Abby Costigan, the food service director, oversees that, and it gets audited. I think it was every 3 years, or every 3 years they do that. She wasn't able to be there that night, but the building principals gave an overview to the SIAC committee as a whole, and they had it ahead of time to read through and provide input and ask questions. Interestingly, again, back to the strategic planning for the district, where students want more time for lunch and more choices. That was a part that one of the students commented on at the committee, just like more time, because they drive home for lunch each day, and they thought 5 to 10 minutes more time would provide them, I guess, a more relaxed lunch. But again, just reiterating, that's a very social time for students and for them to decompress and eat. And that input that was specific to buildings and principals, I took that back to them. There really wasn't anything I felt like it would be an advisory to the board on that report at that point. So the third presentation was about Career Quest, which you also have seen at the board. And the students that are on the committee shared their experiences with that Zello software, had some input that was given back to the high school as to whether by the time some of the students reached the high school age, could some of the tasks within Zello on careers be more optional or not. And so it's always just great to hear student voices, to be a part of their education and hear that. So that was the SIAC committee, the last one for this year. Hopefully with the new high school, they'll want to hang out at school more for lunch, not want to go home.
Thank you, Annette. Thanks. The HR committee meeting report.
Met, and we talked about the calendar start date, which was just approved minutes ago. Kelly had a really good idea. I don't know if it's yours and yours alone, but I'm going to give you credit for it. For a retiree pass to activities and events. So if you retire from the district, you can get into activities and events for free. No action on it yet, just kind of talking about it, but I thought that was a really good idea to keep people engaged and involved in the community. And then the final thing we talked about at that time, the elementary principal timeline, which was just named Brittany Murillo. And sounds like there was quite a few good candidates, and she emerged, so excited about that. And just talked about other ideas to show appreciation for staff and employees, and Shelley had talked about some sort of staff recognition, shout out type deal where employees can be highlighted and recognized. But you know, Shelley's been thinking of some really good ideas. It's no secret that there's a shortage of people going into the education field, and a lot of times people aren't going to determine where they work necessarily based on a dollar amount, but it's more the culture and the feel and things like that. And so Shelley's been thinking of some really good ideas to help bolster that here and make Indianola a place where people want to come and stay. Cover that well enough, Shelley?
Your first one today, sent it out to staff, so.
Sweet.
Several people were recognizing.
Any questions for the HR committee? Next item is the board technology committee report.
I printed it off, Ray. I'm getting to be a better committee member. We learned a lot, just more about the different projects that we have going on that involve kind of the data behind the scenes about security and network projects with Sentinel, that we were given that whole packet probably 4 months ago now.
Presentation they came.
Yep. So just continuing to move forward with a designated project manager for that. There's also progress on the video surveillances and door security project for all the buildings. So once the equipment is here, then we'll have a more detailed timeline of when we're going to be able to install everything. And then obviously, I think the district's operations center, the new fiber poles for that network, the 911 services, all those were scheduled March 29th. So did it happen?
It did.
Good.
That building's not live yet.
But the wiring is
Fiber
there.
is there, so
Perfect.
maybe later this week.
Perfect. And then looking at exploring alternatives for a new mobile device management system to kind of just manage end user devices. Every year Ray goes to a conference up in Wisconsin that is one of the better ones that just has a lot of really good topics and information and what we're already doing well, and then things we can improve on and learn from. And so we're able to also kind of see where we're at compared to the bigger schools and what we need to look at moving forward. So we ended the meeting in a conversation. Eric and I don't know if concern's the right word, but we're losing some of the staff in this department. And so I think I saw another one, a resignation from your IT support service specialist. That's after.
He got remote, he got into the other positions.
Okay, so.
Turn around and re-advertise for that as well.
Okay, so we just talked about, are we competitive? Are we competitive with our neighboring districts? And if we're not, what does that look like? And if there are tangible things that we could look at to try to retain some of his staff, it might be worth a conversation, because that's a department that's not going away anytime soon. So that was kind of how we ended that meeting.
Any questions for the IT committee? Or are we competitive? I guess I want to know.
We lost one to a neighboring district.
Primarily salary driven.
It's a pretty competitive market, and so I think we just really have to stay on the ball, and it's always cheaper to, if you've got a quality person, it's always cheaper to keep them around than to have to retrain somebody else and hire somebody green. So we just need to keep an eye on it, I think. Do what we can.
Any other questions? Next item is the finance, facilities, and support services. First item in that section is the Allers Bond Council and Disclosure Council Engagement Agreement. Looking for a recommendation to approve Allers for the Series 2024 bond obligation.
So moved.
Motion made by Eric. Seconded by Sue. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item is the $15 million in GO bonds, Series 2024. Resolution is on page 131, 32.
132.
Motion made by Rob. Second. Seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Letter C is the certified budget. This is a continuance of our previous public hearing. At this time, we'll open public hearing again for everyone to comment.
What time is it?
Crickets.
We'll close the public hearing.
6:41.
We did have a few people that joined us at our 7 a.m. meeting on March 25th. Asked some clarifying questions just to understand the form that they got in the mail a little bit better. And I feel like everybody that had questions left here with a better understanding as to what was actually going on. So with that, we can...
I like the format of having a morning one and an evening. It gives people the opportunities to.
I agree.
Come to both
Yeah.
when they can.
And I think that it was just unfortunate that the first one was in the morning and people assumed that that was the only one we were doing.
I was gonna say, I don't know, we did a very good job of marketing that we have two. But that's,
I don't, Chad, maybe you know, on the mailer, would it allow us to put both public hearings on that in the future, or does it limit us to just one?
Just limited to one on that mailing. You know, so they would have to be looking for the newspaper publishing of, you know, this budget you're about ready to adopt. On there, it'll have the second hearing on there. But the people, I mean, it's very different, even completely different audiences between those getting it in the mail and seeing that and those looking for that in the newspaper. So that's, yeah, unfortunate. But no, they, that notice is something, you know, the county generates, and it's all kind of prescribed by the Department of Management, so.
We blast that out on social media,
Yeah.
both of those meetings.
Well, and that's the thing, I think, you know, next year, just the way the calendar lies, the timing will be a little bit better. I mean, we had 7 a.m. on the first day that we could do it, and there's a reason we did it then, but, you know, probably on a Monday morning, so maybe not opportune. So hopefully next year we'll have a little better window for the timing there.
Maybe something for us to think about would be trying to schedule that first meeting in the evening to eliminate the confusion of people being upset that it's a 7 a.m. And maybe next year we won't need to do a 7 a.m. Maybe we can do both of them in an evening. But now that we've been through this once, I think that we have learned how it works and can move on from there. Looking for a motion to approve the certified budget.
So moved.
Second. Eric and Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Monthly financial reports. This was really big for Jonna. This was like the most important part of the meeting. She usually danced.
Yeah, she probably loves the
numbers. Presentation.
you just need to let us know your theme song, so we
Well,
can download it.
I was gonna load the Hawkeye fight song.
That'd be a good one.
I don't wanna upset Jonna so early.
Today would be total eclipse of the heart day, so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, otherwise, unless you have any questions, I don't think anything really consequential when we looked at the numbers too, putting these reports together. Yeah, the only one that looks a little different, and obviously John has commented on this before too, is just the cash flow comparison's a little bit different than usual, but not by much, and I think you'll see the same arc come up here once we get to the April property tax revenues in there. So.
Was that difference just based on the bond money that came in and then what we've paid out for our projects?
This particular cash flow one is just general fund, so it wouldn't necessarily reflect that. Some of this that you're looking at here for this current year, a lot more to do probably with federal funding. and the bulge that we may have had from the last payments for ESSER funds and stuff like that.
Chad, the self-insurance fund, you know, like you're almost another million. You're getting close to at least 80%, another million there, higher from last year. I mean, I know our pool of employees we probably see a younger pool that's more favorable in the insurance world's eyes. Well, maybe not all of them, but some of it.
Yeah.
When are negotiations each year to see what the premium is going to be, I guess, for the participants? Like, and where do you start to see a break there?
Right, well, and I think we'll learn and talk about that a lot more on the 24th of this month. Is that what it is? I believe. That's when that insurance committee gets together and we'll meet with Benefit Source, I believe, and to answer all those questions that you're talking about.
Okay.
Now, I assume ultimately your question is, when you're setting those premiums and, we don't need this growing by $1 million every year.
Right.
So that should be something we'll take into account at that point is, I don't know to what extent we've known what our increases are. We did get news probably, I don't know, a week and a half ago, or a week ago, I think, that the increases that they were predicting back in January, or the information they had from Wellmark, they were worried that that may bump back up, but they said no, it'll be the same as the initial. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what the initial numbers were. I think they seem to be pretty good. In fact, actually, I think they fell between the buffer, the openers that you guys have on yours, which is like 1 and 4 or something percent. It was in between there. So far so good on those.
Is there a way to use any of that? Maybe you can ask at that meeting. Use any of those funds to put into the participants' HSAs, like more of those to go back into some HSAs. I don't know if that's legal or not.
We are able to do that now for people who are eligible, so not everybody that takes a high deductible plan is eligible to participate in an HSA. So it does seem a little unfair to just reward those people. If you have coverage through your spouse, for example, and it's not also a high deductible plan, you can't put money in an HSA. So we want to be equitable for all the staff. With that extra money too, we're able to keep increases from going up, even though, in general, they're going up 5, 10, 12% to other employers. We can keep it down by not increasing the rates for people as much as possible. So that's what we try to do. The last couple of years, we've been able to cover that. We've heard a lot of other schools that are bumping way up, and we're able to self-absorb that because of the self-insurance.
Have we looked at any relationships with the wellness center at all? Like,
I have asked that question there. It's not available right now, but they will transition Friday. That's that. We also do a wellness. The last 2 days of school, we offered a free, what do they call that? They do the
health screening.
Health screening, and we paid for that out of this fund. Do we pay early retirement out of this one? No, not out of this one. Okay.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, no, I think we're hit both ends, both, not having quite as bold increases, but then also seeing what kind of benefits, wellness center, health screening, stuff like that, we can also provide out of there.
Thanks, guys.
Make a motion to approve the February 2024 financial reports.
Second. Motion made by Ben, seconded by Eric. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And motion carries 6-0. Letter E is the commissioning contractor quotes on the district operations center building.
What are these
What does this
for?
mean?
Yeah.
What is this?
You want me to take that, Ted? All right, very good. And I don't know to what extent you guys may be aware, commissioning, and maybe you guys have heard or whatever, it is where you have a independent company come in after the at least substantial completion. They come in actually at various points towards the end of the project and essentially go through and certify that everything is in place and working the way it's supposed to be at the end of the project. So all of your excuse me, ventilation controls are working correctly. You know, it's heating, it's cooling, your plumbing's working right, there's no leaks, no roof leaks, everything like that. And so there's an extensive scope of things that they will go and test and confirm. And ultimately then obviously you're making sure that your general contractor got everything, you know, done to specifications, with the idea then that later on you don't get into the situation where something doesn't work and then, you know, you have fingers pointing at each other of architect or GC or us, or is something under warranty? Because if something fails that's under warranty, they may push back and say, oh, it was installed incorrectly and stuff like that. So you kind of eliminate that. You get this report from these companies. In this case, this Tune Corporation out of Omaha had the lowest bid for each of these. So the District Operations Center, we're, you know, pretty close to ready for them to come in and do that probably next month. Maybe even sooner, because they'll have several visits. In the case of the high school, this is something that I think the scope of this had them starting in April of 2026, right? And then kind of lasting until it's accepted.
Completion of the second phase.
Yeah, exactly, completion of the second phase, that's correct. So they'd come at different times to do different testing to make sure that everything is working correctly and been installed correctly.
And what if they find a deficiency?
Back to the general contractor, I think, to get it corrected at that point. So that's a big part of it too, actually, Rob, is when they do find the deficiencies, we know right away that is on the general contractor to get it done. It's nothing that we did, you know, ultimately be a subcontractor or whatever, but that subcontractor has to come back and get it done. One of the bigger ones, of course, is things like our HVAC controls, because you could easily have it handed over to you, and unless you have guys that are really specialized in that, you may not come across the issue there for years. I mean, at least if you're talking a certain time of year, it would be several months because you don't need the heater to kick back in or something like that. So that's the concept behind that. So yeah, we've got the two different bids, one for the $14,000 for the District Operations Center, and then one for $79,000 for the new high school. So,
What does a security alternate mean?
you have to refresh my memory, Ted. I think that is where they're specifically going to our doors. And I don't know if it involves cameras or not. I know
It was doors, if I remember correctly. It was just the door piece of it.
making sure that all of the electronics is working right for that. And of course, yeah, you're talking about numerous doors, particularly where you are talking about the high school here. You're just talking numerous doors, making sure that they're detecting things right. And, you know, I don't know if they're powered locks or not, but anyway, those specialized doors are working correctly as well. That wasn't in the original scope of the RFP, that because Envision sent out this RFP to these companies, and this was what we got back from this.
I would assume that that is an alternate that we would want.
Yeah, that was the recommendation of.
I think one of the biggest pieces is, we talked about this quite a bit on Friday, is to get these bids locked in now, not knowing exactly what the price could be in, 2 years, and try to, at least we have one company that kind of worked with over a multiple period of time, and as you can see, the bids are quite a bit difference.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract for the District Operations Center to Tune.
Second. Motion made by Ben, seconded by Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
I'll make a motion to award the bid for the new high school to Tune as well.
Motion made by Ben, seconded by Rob, and that's with both the base
With
bid.
both the base bid and the security alternative.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The Finance Committee report.
So as you see there, we really just had the one discussion with the representatives from Piper Sandler. Did talk through this idea of option one, and as you can see, it's stated there, that scenario would pay off the bonds over 25 years. Option two pays it off the bonds at 15 years. It offers a little more flexibility, but maybe even more importantly, we talked about pushing that bond closing date into the next fiscal year, being July. Part of that is a little bit of prognosis as far as interest rates are concerned, because we think just, waiting time-wise. I mean, there is a scenario in there where you could issue bonds as soon as possible and then, lock them away at a higher interest rate, because obviously you got the two ends where, you could, if you have high interest rates on what you're borrowing versus high interest rates on what you're investing, but usually if you play that game, you're still better off borrowing at the lower interest rate. So that's what we're kind of looking for at this point, is push that into July. You saw the timeline was included in with the minutes as well. So, but at this point, all that information is just for information. Even and we included that in the minutes. No concrete decisions at this point, other than the timeline has changed, and so we had the first two steps tonight for the 15 million, and then we'll have increasing steps over about the next 3 board meetings.
We also talked a little bit about the difference in $10 million and less, giving us more flexibility with how we borrow, and anything over 10 million, having more stringent rules on how we can invest and grow that money. And if we get in a position where we don't get it utilized in a certain amount of time, we may be in a spot where we have to pay the difference between what we're borrowing and what we're earning it at. So if we had a net gain of 2% on our investment, we may actually have to pay that back to the federal government as a penalty for not utilizing that money in a timely fashion. So it got a little bit more complex than what it had been when we were drawing less than 10 million on the last 2 distributions. So any questions about that? Okay. The next item is the Facilities Committee report.
We talked about the District Operations Center. It's almost complete there. Just a little bit of a delay there. I think is substantial completion this Friday now.
Hopefully.
A lot of pictures there that Bernie took as of the date, April 3rd. The bus parking 75 to 80% complete now. The words are up on the outside so you can identify it. The next section is about number 2, the pond dredging and expansion there. Maybe expanding the pond here to the southwest of us here to be able to utilize it a little bit more during the season where things are really dry. That's all the parking lots drain to that pond, and that pond then supplies the water for all of the irrigation systems around this area. So it's nice that we recycle that water and use it, which I hope nobody's driving on the irrigation system since all the grass has been driven on tonight. So anyway, so we may need to expand that and then also dredge to get all the sludge off the bottom of it, so it will be more efficient and will hold more water. Bernie's looking to wait till after the season to do that in the fall, late fall of this year, winter of this year. Next is the acoustical boards in those areas of elementary cafeterias, just to control sound, high school band room, stadium team rooms, and the print shop as well, the new print shop, right? New print shop, okay. And then last is the radio repeater at Wilder, just needing to get something there so that the radios are working a little better in that location. So a good need there that we need to look at. That's it.
Any questions for facilities? All right. Policy Committee report.
So in our meeting, I'd say, again, relatively minor wording changes. We had conversations about policies for career education, teaching about religion, academic freedom, global education, citizenship, and the basic instruction program, as well as summer school instruction and special education, multicultural, gender-aware education, health education, physical education. Interesting point about the physical education on page 183 here is that co-curricular programs can now fulfill those requirements. And so it could be that marching band or show choir or an athletic activity could satisfy those requirements and free up some time in those students' schedules. One point I did want to bring up, 603.8, teaching about religion. So that's page 171, I think. But I think we had discussed a wording change there. Instead of a single religion, we talked about of any religion.
Yep.
Does that ring a bell?
Yep.
Otherwise, it makes it sound like 2 or more religions is okay, but not a single.
All right, I gotta scroll back up, I apologize, to see what's first and what's second reading. So the 603s are first reading and, well, part of the 603s are first reading. And then a second reading for 603, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Entertain a motion for the policies.
So 3.7 through 603.11.
Second. Motion made by Sue, seconded by Rob, just for the first reading, correct?
Yes, that's what mine was. Put them in one, or they have to be 2 separate motions?
You can do 2, that's fine. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. In the second readings.
Move that we approve those listed for the second reading.
Motion made by Eric. Seconded by Rob. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, the calendar is attached. Any changes from board members or cabinet members? Curriculum's Thursday.
Yeah, and the teachers, the next.
Next board meeting is scheduled for May 13th at 5:30. The agenda is attached, or prelim agenda is attached. Are there any other items that we need to discuss?
What's some of them we're bringing up, some of the some of the teachers there? I know we've talked about that several times before, and I was just wondering, Annette versus Chad, to balance how they talk about 190 days, 180 student days, the 1,000 and something hours there. Like, I think we've always talked in the past, like, we want to keep our student days up, and we want to keep as many student hours as possible. And the only way I see being able to figure something out there to give them more time to be able to do that would be to increase the contract days to like 193, 195. I know some other surrounding districts do that, and I just wondered, like, if, like, Annette, you could explore the need, if that would be something good for our district, and then Chad, you could explore the cost and see what those look like for future, what it would cost.
You mean the need for work days for staff?
For more work days, yeah, beyond the 10 additional ones past the student days, to give them extra days to be able to take care of what they need to get done. And then Chad to
see what that cost would look like, you know, to have everybody, maybe, I don't know if you'd have everybody here or if you just have certified staff here on those extra days or what.
But I think too, that's been a negotiated limit, hasn't it, in the master agreement, that they've limited it to 190 days, so that isn't something that can be renegotiated for 4 years, is that correct?
I don't believe that's in the master contract, the number of days. It is in the handbook.
Oh, it's in the handbook, the 190 days?
The only thing that's in the master contract at this point is the salary.
I thought in your listed it said that piece, so.
Just for future planning.
It feels like exploring the other end of that as well, if there were some minimal number of days that were shifted from instruction to work days, or however that might work, I think. Understanding both sides of that equation.
Do you mean in terms of their preference, or?
Well, I think the understanding I have, right, is we're over the required limit, right? We have extra instructional days, correct?
Yes.
And so, you know, if a small number of days were shifted from instructional to work days, so as opposed to increasing contract days, similar there, you know, do we think that would have a tremendous impact on learning? You know, so just trying to balance out both ends of, you know,
I think
working
it
with
will
those.
come back to being just opinions. It'll be
So-
people's opinions. I don't know how you would get research or actual facts.
So, and part of it may be looking at, you know, getting a better understanding of neighboring districts and, you know, are we right in the middle? Are we on one extreme end of the way we're doing things? But, you know, understand it's a discussion, right? And everybody has their preferences, but just having a better understanding of how we fit into the mix would be helpful.
Anything else?
You're right on the master contract, going back to that, it does say under personal leave without pay, the amount deducted from the employee's salary for one day will be 1/190th, 193 for new teachers of the combined Schedule A salary. So it is 190.
This would be,
Sorry, not year.
there'd be 2 additional years after what we just approved.
Through 2027, it's 190 days.
Tim, was there anything that you had for us tonight?
Nothing already hasn't been addressed.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Mac.
Oh, I'm in the seat.
You're in the seat.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Sue. Second by Rob. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
So you have to pick one. I'll let you.